Peace be with you. Welcome to the Institute of All Intelligent Life. My name is Alan Kiesler, and today our class is about whistleblower Goode. And today is Wednesday, the 5th of October, 2016. Goode is a very, very important whistleblower. In my opinion, he's probably the most important of all, because he is giving information about full disclosure. There are many other whistleblowers. Even yesterday I spoke a little bit about Andrew Bashago, and he is doing a lot of very, very good work. As I said, he's running for President of the United States, so perhaps he's a politician of sorts, so he has to be a little careful about what he says, so he may not be giving full disclosure. But Goode seems, as far as I can tell, to have no such political considerations or restrictions in any way. And as far as I can tell, he is telling everything that he knows, which is a lot more than most of us ever imagined was possible. So Andy Bashago and many others have told us so many things that are shocking. Time travel, teleportation. These things are something that may be completely unacceptable to many of us because it just seems like science fiction, or it seems like it's something that's just not possible. It's so outside of our frame of reference or anything that we've been taught or heard of before. But what Goode is revealing goes far beyond that. At least Goode is the source of most of my information about these very, very amazing and hard to believe things. So I'm going to start just telling about Goode and his experience, and I'm going to have to fill in some background information because a lot of us don't know about many of these things. But perhaps the first thing we need to talk about is military abductions. Probably most of you have heard about abductions by aliens. People have been talking about it a lot, and it's also publicized by negative elements in the mass media who want us to think that aliens are all evil and they're abducting people and doing experiments on them. So I'm not saying that's false, that there is also truth in that. But the abductions that are going on often are by the military, American military or other countries, and they sometimes pose as extraterrestrials in order to give extraterrestrials a bad name and do many things that are really horrible experiments. So Goode was abducted by the military. He was actually from a military family, and that's probably why he was brought into the program he was. He was tested. This is actually very common in America in the public schools. They test the children. They give them standardized tests, and they begin finding out who are some of the children that they may want to utilize in their secret military programs. So from the age of 6, Corey was discovered, you might say, through standardized testing in the schools or however, and he began to be taken out of school for special classes. And you can see all the details. I'm not going to go into the details of his biography because you can find out a lot of that yourself by going to his website, which is spherebeingalliance.com, spherebeingalliance.com, and there's a lot of information there. From that source you can get a lot of information about the details of Goode's life. But the point I'm just making here is that military abductions, or MILABs, M-I-L-A-B, MILAB is a military abduction which people sometimes have confused with alien abductions. But the military, especially the American military again, but other countries also, have been using abductions to take people and use them for their purposes and train them in their purposes. And often they do horrible things, even to the children, to try to improve them, you might say, for their purposes. So this happened to Corey Goode also. He was taken by the military and trained and given upgrades or improvements of his natural psychic abilities so that he could be used by them for their purposes. And the basic purpose that he was used for was as an intuitive empath, or IE. He had psychic abilities from his childhood, and the military detected this and so chose him to be trained specially further as an intuitive empath. An intuitive empath basically is somebody who can intuitively, just directly from their consciousness, perceive things that ordinary people can't perceive. And intuitive empaths are especially used in situations where there may be deceit and deception, and it's hard to tell whether somebody is telling the truth or is lying or is concealing something. So intuitive empaths are able to detect the truth, to able to see the truth, even though somebody is trying to conceal it by many, many methods. So from the time that the United States military and the military-industrial complex started interacting more and more with extraterrestrials, they needed to discern whether these extraterrestrials were telling the truth or were lying. So they began training more and more intuitive empaths. So Corey Goode was one of the early intuitive empaths utilized in the American secret space programs, and he was very, very good. He was a very, very good intuitive empath, and he has told a lot of things about how this program works. And basically, very simply, not just one, but when not just one intuitive empath, but three are taken along with a delegate, an Earth delegate, to a secret space program meeting with other extraterrestrial groups. And these intuitive empaths sit beside or behind the delegate and are constantly there to advise him what they are perceiving about the truth or falsehood of what somebody may be saying. So Corey was trained like this from the time he was 6 years old for about 10 years, I believe. So this is from about 1975 or 76 until 87, 86 or 87. That's about the time period when he was under this training. And then from about 87 to 2007, he was part of a secret space program called 20 and Back. And this is another thing that's very difficult to accept, so I'm not going to go into all the details now. I will later. But basically it's a 20-year service in a secret space program, which one, has a contract from the beginning, and one is sort of cut off from all contact on the Earth, for the most part at least, if not entirely, for that 20-year period when they are going out into space, meeting extraterrestrials, going to secret bases on the Moon and Mars and further out. And they are then prevented from understanding this by different psychological methods. The person who has participated in this program is blank slated, as it's called, so they forget everything. And it's only with great difficulty that they later might start remembering, or maybe not. There have been several other people who have come forward, from at least 4, 5, 6 other people also, who have talked about this 20 and Back program and have had this 20-year period of their lives which they were then blank slated from. They couldn't remember it, and only many years later were they able to gradually recover the memories through various techniques. So this happened to Corey also, But because he was an intuitive empath, he was able to remember much more of his experiences during those 20 years. And he's told a lot about them. And please, I ask all of you to take this very, very seriously. Corey Goode, Coreygoode. If you do a search on him, you'll find his website, and I humbly request you to take very seriously what he's saying, even though it may be very far out, may be very difficult to believe, may be contrary to things that you've been taught or you've accepted as the truth. But please be open-minded and study what he's saying. So during this 20-year period, he was, a lot of the time, he was an intuitive empath, and he was on a research vessel also, doing research. So he learned a lot from that experience about what's really going on in the solar system and in the galaxy, because he was involved in doing that research. And one of the most important things that he learned from that research, and that he's talked a lot about, and I've mentioned a little bit about this in the past in this class or in other Facebook chats or posts, that our universe is not what we usually think it is. There are many, many things that we've not been told, that the military, secret space programs may know about, but they haven't revealed. And as I mentioned earlier on my class, one of the most important things is that our solar system goes through cycles of about 25,000 some years, and the solar system also passes through different areas of our galaxy. And right now, this very time in which we're living, these years or decades or centuries that we're living in right now, is a very, very critical period in which we are passing through. We have already entered, and we're in an area of high energy, you might say, in our galaxy, which is causing a lot of problems for a lot of people, as our consciousness also gets affected by this higher energy, and we are required to come to a higher level of awareness and consciousness ourselves in order to exist in this higher energy part of the galaxy that we are now in. Not just entering, we've been entering in it for at least 30-40 years, and now we're in it. And at the same time, we are reaching a high point of this 25,000-year cycle, where there will be a lot of changes and an opportunity to ascend, or an opportunity to come to a higher level of consciousness. And Corey Goode has talked a lot about this. Other people have also, but he knows this from personal experience, that our sun is also going through a lot of changes. So we should all be aware of this and be prepared to try and come to a higher level of consciousness. And what does that mean? The most important thing, as Corey has explained and other sources also have talked about, is to become service to others oriented more. Give up our selfish plans for me and my family only, and think about others and serving others, and being kind to others, and forgiving others, and forgiving ourselves for things that may have been done against us, or things that we have done either against ourselves or against others. So this message is what Corey Goode says is the most important thing he has learned about coming to a higher level of consciousness at this time, more forgiving, kind, and serving others, and being overall more loving. So Corey Goode was an intuitive empath in the secret space program, especially the Solar Warden program, which I talked about a couple of days ago. And he was very, very important because he was such a good intuitive empath. So Corey has now talked about what is called the spherebeingalliance. His website is spherebeingalliance.com, And what is this sphere-being alliance? It is an alliance of 5 extraterrestrial groups who are on a very high level of consciousness, much higher than we are. To us, they may be like angelic beings because they're very good beings, very spiritually oriented, very service to others oriented, and they are helping us a lot. They don't overcome or interfere with our free will, but they are helping us by giving us information and by helping us through this transitional period when we are entering and are now in this area of our galaxy which is of higher energy. And if we weren't helped, and if these higher level beings weren't here to help us do this transitional period, we would be having a lot more difficulty than we are. So Corey Goode was then selected by this sphere-being alliance to represent them in negotiations with especially secret space programs and with Earth secret governments. And so he has a lot of incredible information that's, again, I repeat this again and again because even to me it was so astonishing to hear the things that he's been saying. But he is the source of a lot of information that I have been giving in the past. Also, I may have sometimes mentioned that he was a source of it, sometimes I didn't. But he has incredible experience and information about other extraterrestrial groups and about the intraterrestrial groups, the groups who live underneath the ground in large caverns or in hollowed out areas, or what's called the hollow earth, but it's not. He says it's not the hollow. Our earth is not hollow, but there are huge empty areas, caverns or spaces where there are entire cities, entire civilizations, and he has been in contact with some of them also. And in fact, one of the most important points coming from that I've realized, which is a thing that sort of revolutionized my understanding of reality and of history also, is that in the distant past, meaning thousands of years ago, that's not very distant compared to other things, but in the past thousands of years on our planet, maybe tens or hundreds of thousands of years also, some human groups separated from us, from the surface human beings. So they are human beings just like we are. They're in one sense our ancestors, but they moved underneath the surface of the earth and built up their civilization there for a variety of reasons, partly for their own safety, but also to protect themselves from us, because our genetics were manipulated by other extraterrestrial groups, and that's why we are warlike. We are very often fighting with each other. Our history over the last few thousand years is full of wars. So this other group of human beings, which goes by different names, one of them is Agarthans, and have been known from time to time by various human groups being contacted by them. But the most important point that Corey has brought out is that these underground advanced human civilizations, they have appeared from time to time, and because, to give them the benefit of the doubt, we can say we human beings on the surface were not ready for more information about them, or they wanted to protect themselves from us, so they didn't disclose that they were from our own planet and they were living currently underneath the surface of our planet. So they posed themselves as extraterrestrials or as gods. And so a lot of the stories that we read about the ancient Greek gods, for example, ancient Babylonian or Sumerian gods, ancient gods from different parts of the world, they were actually these very advanced, technologically advanced human races that are living underneath the planet. But to protect themselves, they said they were from farther away, where we couldn't attack them. But now, with our technology that we have gained in the last century, especially nuclear power and other advanced weapons that we've developed, now we really are a great danger to them. So they have tried to conceal themselves from us, but just in the last few years, Goode has been, at least for me, Goode has been the one who has brought out the truth that these groups who we formerly thought about, as extraterrestrials or as gods in the distant past, before people could understand about extraterrestrials the way we can now, they were actually some of these underground civilizations, human civilizations. So Corey has actually been there, and if you go on his website and follow what he's been talking about over the last couple of years, because he's only been out in the open for a couple of years. He began a few years ago trying to get out this information secretly because it was very dangerous for him to expose all of this information that he had learned within these top secret space programs, which are highly protected by the people that run them. That's why we haven't heard much about them. But Goode, at great risk to himself, he started revealing the information that he had learned, and then finally, about 2 years ago, towards the end of 2014, he revealed his identity. He came out publicly and started sharing this information. So it's only been in the very recent past, the past year or two, that I and others have heard about him and have gained all this information that he is sharing to great risk to himself and his family. He's married, has children, and they've had their lives threatened. He's had his life threatened, and there have been many unpleasant experiences he and his family have had to go through. But he is undoubtedly being protected by the spherebeingalliance, by higher level beings who are more powerful than these very evil and satanic human as well as extraterrestrial forces that we call the cabal, who have been manipulating and running our Earth and almost all the governments of our Earth for many centuries and even millennia. So this is getting more and more difficult, but I'll go on in talking a little about what Goode has explained. This spherebeingalliance had selected him, and so he has been involved in negotiations with different groups, and he has told us very, very wonderful news that there is an increasing Earth Alliance, as it's called, and there's also a secret space program alliance, which are working together to defeat the cabal. This group, which we know mostly as international bankers, international banksters, they are very, very evil, selfish people who are making themselves fabulously wealthy by cheating the populations of the world. And aligned with them are energy companies. They're often the same people, oil companies especially, who are preventing us from finding out this technology, free energy technology that would free us from dependence on oil, which is causing pollution and a lot of problems all over the world. So there is an alliance that is increasing, that is becoming more powerful. The numbers are increasing as defectors from the cabal are coming into the alliance. So this alliance originated from the Solar Warden secret space program that I talked about. The Solar Warden program originally started as a U.S. military naval intelligence, especially organization, developing space travel based on technologies that had been obtained from Germans who had obtained it from extraterrestrials. So the alliance started from the Solar Warden program, but many other people also from other secret space programs and from other groups have joined. So there's the Earth Alliance, which is the Earth-based groups, and there's also an alliance of secret space program sources who have gone off-planet and extraterrestrial sources. So this alliance is increasing, becoming stronger, and is being supported by the spherebeingalliance and other high-level extraterrestrial groups. So we should all be very, very happy. Not that the struggle is over, but the tide has turned in our favor, the favor of good people, good human beings and extraterrestrials. And the very evil, negative, selfish people who were categorized as the cabal, or what they call themselves, the Illuminati, they have now been being pushed back. And their programs to take over the world, to enslave the entire planet by one worldwide dictatorship which they ran, that has been stopped. And all of their very, very horrible plans, such as 9/11, which was, of course, a false flag. They pretended that it was done by Muslim terrorists, but actually it was done by the cabal, which included American government officials, included Israeli Mossad organization. So they actually pulled off 9/11 and made it seem like it was done by Osama bin Laden and other Muslims. So this cabal, which at that time, it's been only 15 years since 9/11, at that time they seemed to be in a very strong position. They were able to fool the whole world practically, at least for some time, making us think that 9/11 was a real terrorist event, when the real terrorists were the American government and the Israeli secret services. So, the American secret government, I should say. So, but in the last 15 years, things have changed tremendously. And the most important point I would like to stress now, as our time is coming to an end before I end the class, is that the Sphere Being Alliance put a quarantine around our solar system and around our planet. The solar system quarantine is still in effect. The planetary quarantine has been decreased because a lot of people who were on our planet, extraterrestrial groups who were on our planet doing, valid scientific research or something, they got stuck here by that quarantine of the Earth that the Sphere Being Alliance put into place. So it was not completely dropped, but it was not so rigidly enforced, so people can go in and out of the Earth. But our solar system is now securely protected from outside groups, including groups like the Dark Fleet, who were, human beings allied with very evil extraterrestrials who had star-faring trade, but they have been quarantined, and other extraterrestrial evil forces cannot come into our solar system now because the Sphere Being Alliance has blockaded, has put a quarantine of our solar system for our own protection and for our own encouragement. It's not fair for us to be exploited and manipulated by groups that we don't even know what they're doing, and this has been going on for centuries and for millennia on Earth. But now that has been stopped by the Sphere Being Alliance. So when we talk about Goode, we really hear about the Sphere Being Alliance and this wonderful news that things have changed. And as I have spoken from my own experience in 1998, when I was taken to a meeting, which at that time I really had no idea what it was, but later I found out that there is a group of about 40 or 50 extraterrestrial or races and groups who have a council that oversees the affairs of our planet and maybe our solar system also. So I was taken to that meeting in 1998 where the decision was made to stop the final World War, which was scheduled, was destined to happen in 1999. About July of 1999 was the time people like Nostradamus had foreseen that it would happen. So that war was prevented, and the cabal, who were hoping to use that war for their personal advantage, were frustrated, but they did 9/11 as sort of the reduction, you might say, of that World War. It was an event that was really what they had to do in order to try to regain the control that they would have gotten, that they lost by that war being prevented. So now we've got the good news that the Sphere Being Alliance, very, very high-level extraterrestrial groups who have combined to offer us protection. And the cabal thought because there's a very famous prime directive, as it's called, which is that extraterrestrial advanced civilizations should not interfere with the natural development or evolution of different planets. So they mostly observe that prime directive, and they haven't interfered, and for thousands of years negative extraterrestrials have been manipulating us, and they thought they could get away with it because of this prime directive, that the more powerful extraterrestrials, who were higher level, spiritually higher level than them, wouldn't interfere, they thought. So, however, it's not really interference, but in order to counteract the interference of the negative groups, the spherebeingalliance and others have now entered into and are taking a very active part in our history, in the events of our planet, especially by doing things like setting up this quarantine of our solar system to prevent evil, powerful forces from continuing their attempts to dominate and control our planet as well as our solar system. And let me just, as the last thing, mention that the spherebeingalliance has also brought in very advanced technologies to moderate the influence of the higher energy levels that we are passing through right now, that we have entered into. Our solar system, as I mentioned at the beginning of this class, has entered into a portion of the galaxy where there are very high energies which would be difficult for us to adjust to. So the spherebeingalliance has brought in many technologies, like, for example, large spheres, to sort of buffer these high energy inputs into our solar system, just from what's naturally here in the area of the galaxy that we've now entered into. So we should all be very, very happy and thankful to Corey Goode and to other people that are working with him, like David Wilcock is the most prominent of the people that are helping Corey Goode get his message out now. I will talk about him more in the future also. So we should all be very happy. Not that we can be lazy. Corey Goode is reminding us, the spherebeingalliance is informing us that we should not sit back and expect them to do everything for us, but they are helping us. So all of us should focus on serving others, being kind to others, forgiving others, loving others, and also forgiving ourselves and loving ourselves, being kind to ourselves. And this is the basic message that Corey Goode is bringing from the spherebeingalliance, and we should all be very, very happy that we have these allies, these extraterrestrial allies, who are helping us through this very, very difficult period of human history, which has long been foretold in different scriptures, in different books, by different prophets and different people who can see the future. This time is a very, very special time in human history, and we should all be very happy that even though these very powerful extraterrestrial groups, reptilians mostly, and insectoid groups, as well as human-looking groups, have been exploiting us and manipulating us for a long time, but now that is ending. And this really is a new time, the end of the age of destruction and manipulation of humanity by powerful extraterrestrial groups, and the beginning of a new age of freedom and knowledge. And Corey Goode is a very important part of this knowledge and information that we're getting. So to conclude, I will request you to kindly go to Corey Goode's website, spherebeingalliance.com. You can read about him, and from there you can find out a lot of information about what I've been talking about today. So I think our time is up. We've had half an hour. I'm wanting to make these classes not more than half an hour at the most, and then I may look at a couple of comments here and see if there are any questions. And we do have quite a few comments here. And I'll just, Shakil Sibtain, thank you very much. I had a lot of questions from you before, and I hope you were satisfied with my answer. You had asked a good question, that the Quran says that humanity is the superior being, which I can accept that we are superior, but not technologically the top. We're not at the top of the groups of all extraterrestrials, technologically, obviously not. But human beings do have a very, very special benediction, you might say, which other extraterrestrial groups are watching us, and they're interested in us because we have a spiritual nature and a spiritual emotional nature which is very unusual, very special. And it may be that's what the Quran is referring to when it talks about the superiority of humanity. So here Shakil is saying that the Quran tells us these people are Juj Majuj, Gog and Magog. We had questions about this before. I really don't know exactly what Gog and Magog or Juj and Majuj are. They certainly are some evil forces that attack and try to destroy the good people. So you may be right, Shakil Sahib, that the people that I'm talking about, whether it's the Cabal or the Illuminati or whether it's extraterrestrial groups, they may be what not only the Quran, the Bible, other books also talk about something like Gog and Magog or Juj and Majuj. So maybe you're right that this may be these extraterrestrial groups or this Cabal or Illuminati group. Yajuj Majuj, somebody just corrected. So it's not Juj Majuj, it's Yajuj Majuj, Gog and Magog in the Bible. And this is in Surah Al-Kahf, K-A-H-F. Surah Al-Kahf in the Quran will give us more information about this. Somebody has just posted. So Fahad Jora, I don't hear a lot about God in all this. Well, I'm happy to say that everyone, practically all extraterrestrial groups, they have an understanding that there is definitely a God, there is an original source of everything. That original source is far beyond our ability to comprehend, and there certainly are different ideas about God in that different groups have, and there are different ideas about the divine abode. As I explained earlier, I personally have had the good fortune to have got an experience of what I call the transdimensional existence, which is the eternal world, which was never created, and which is centered on the actual abode of God. So God is real, and almost all of these extraterrestrial groups are well aware of that. They may have different sorts of relationships with God, they call God by different names, but they all know that there is one original source of everything, and that the ultimate goal of our lives is to reconnect with God and serve God. But it may take a long time. Some people don't see this as an immediate possibility. Personally, I feel we can immediately connect with God right now. We can just call on the name of God. Immediately we are connected with God, because God, although living far, far away in one sense, in terms of space and time, we may say God's abode is far, far away from here, but as the Quran and other scriptures say, God is also very, very near. So God is very, very real. God is our source. God is our goal. God is our beloved. God is our master. God is everything, the source of everything. And everything that exists is actually coming from God and is inseparable from God. So if we haven't talked much about God here, please forgive me. That's just because we're focusing on some other topics right now. So, thank you, Shakil Sahib. The more we get knowledge, more we go towards God. Yes, that's very, very true. And thank you for reminding us of that. Okay, I hope I've answered that question sufficiently. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. We are going to continue talking about the information that we received from whistleblowers like Goode. So thank you again for attending this class or listening to this class, and I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow morning, 6:30 California time, 6:30 in the evening Pakistan time, and may God protect us all. Thank you very much.